Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Brian Power. Now Brian graduated with a bachelor's degree in English literature and a secondary education, and later earned a master's degree in international relations. He is a retired corporate consultant and trainer. Now, he also retired from the US Marine Corps Reserve as a lieutenant colonel, where he completed 24 years of active and reserve service. He currently lives in Rhode Island. Brian Power, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, Brian, it's great to have you on. We've got you on right now by audio, and we will get you on hopefully one day by video as well. So just to begin with, just tell us how you got into this work, and just a bit of background on yourself as well.
Okay, yeah, the book is Song of Atlantis, and it's kind of an accumulation of a whole bunch of stuff. About 15 years ago, I had read a couple of books, one by Graham Hancock and the other by Christopher Dunn, about the origins and purposes of things like the Great Pyramid at Egypt. And, I was fascinated by it, and I always thought that, the mathematics of these, of the structure was just absolutely astounding. And, and I was always blown away then by how did these people do this with such phenomenal accuracy when they didn't even have the wheel back at the time they were supposedly built it. And so I got thinking about it over the years, and I thought, geez, it'd be great to kind of build a story around that, and and get it to a more general audience. And because I thought that Hancock writes books that are kind of really for the they're kind of for the ancient aliens crowd, which is fine. That's okay, But so I was looking to reach kind of a broader audience of the general reader, and so I took that basic premise of the origins of the pyramid, and then I started, and its purpose being a power plant, and I started building a story around it.
So why then do you think this is an important story for mankind? Why are the pyramids, for like the Giza pyramid and other pyramids around the world, who do share a lot of likeness in their construction, why are these important to the ongoing sort of journey of mankind in a sense? And what do they tell us about our past as well?
Well, my sense of it is that I was looking at this more from an ecological point of view. That we need to create a permanent, clean power source, and Christopher Dunn had wrote a wonderful book about called the Giza power plant, in which he, as an engineer, posited the plausibility of the Great Pyramid at Giza having been an actual power plant. And I thought, well, this is terrific, and perhaps this is something that happened worldwide, because we do have these pyramid structures all over the place. And I've seen some suggestions that maybe they communicated with each other. It was a grid network. I just simply took the point of view that, for the simplification of the novel, that the Great Pyramid was actually the sole power source, and it was energy that could be beamed around the world for this advanced civilization of Atlantis as they were doing, expanding their reach around the globe at the end of the Ice Age. And so that was kind of where I came from on this whole approach. But it was basically looking at the sustainability of the Earth and the forces that are against that. And so I have this, the dark side and the light side, competing with each other.
Yes, absolutely. And why is it the title of the book called The Song of Atlantis?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how this inspiration happened, but what I did is I had the people of Atlantis communicating in song language, so that everything they did, all their whole communications was based on music. Their technology was all based on music. And their ability to create vehicles that could fly, that tools that could cut with amazing precision, tools that could lift enormous weights and move them. All that was music based. And so, it's and it was based on a general theory that I've seen that you take any couple of musical notes and they form a chord.
Yeah.
But in your mind's, if you have two notes that form a chord, in your ear, in your mind's ear, you're actually hearing a third note. And for those who remember the great harmony duo of the Everly Brothers, they sounded wonderful. They always sounded like they were three or four people. And it wasn't a trick of recording. It was the fact that they had this very tight harmony. So I took that concept, and the concept is actually the same in art. If you take two colors and lie them next to each other, your mind's eye sees a third color. And that was basically the premise behind pointillism. So I took the concept of sound and saying, well, if you now took these notes and compressed them together and brought them way up the scale, tens of thousands of times above our level of hearing, where you go past radio waves, and maybe you now have a technology that you could use, to cut granite. And so it's kind of a far-fetched, really out there idea. But so was, when we first saw Star Trek and we heard about, warp speed, and setting phasers to stun, that seemed pretty far out too. So I use that as my
Sure.
as a basis, for the Atlantean technology.
Sure. And when you say that the Atlanteans, if they did exist, which, there's a substantial evidence to say something existed, because those pyramids show us that, how could man have done that? I know there's people that have tried to come up with ways to show that mankind could have done this, but it's still, not something we would even contemplate in doing in today's, technological age, in a sense, what we think is technological. So, where did you get the idea that the sound was what they were using it for, and the sound was what they used? Just very briefly, where did that concept come from?
It was an article I had read, actually, where somebody was explaining about color and color juxtaposition, and I thought, well, geez, sound juxtaposition is the same, a similar concept, and maybe sound is the low end of the scale, and color is the middle end of the scale, and then microwave beams are the high end of the scale, and I just kind of started toying with that idea, and whether it has scientific merit or not, I don't know, but it seemed like a fun idea, and I needed a way to explain how did these people do this, because we look at the Great Pyramid, we look at all these great structures, Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, whatever, and say, wait a minute, this has got to be more than just ropes and slave labor. The precision is far too great. It is, and it was far beyond the capacity of those who allegedly built them. So there's something more there. And so I thought, well, I need to invent a technology.
Right.
So that's what I did. I gave the song technology to the Atlanteans.
That's incredible. And how many years, just remind me, were you studying the pyramids?
Oh, I had been, I guess I had read the Hancock books back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then, that's always going around in the back of my mind. I just love the concept of it. And I read a few other books like that. And then, all of a sudden, 2009 or thereabouts, all of a sudden it started, and I've always wanted to be a writer. I've started a million writing projects and always hit a dead end after 10 or 15 pages. And all of a sudden I started putting this one together, and I started writing, and it all started flowing together. And I was pulling things in from my childhood, from people I knew, to develop characters, and some research on various places that I'd never been, and all of a sudden it was just really flowing. And it took me, with the editing and re-editing process, it took me 6 years to actually complete the book, and I had a lot of help. I had my family did a lot of the proofreading on it. I had some friends that jumped in and did some great stuff. I had one of the best bits of advice I got was from a fellow writer. He does mostly short stories, and he said, less is more. He said, I got to a certain point in the book, he said, you were telling me way too much. Take a lot of the technology out. I said, oh, okay. So I ended up yanking out about 50 pages worth of stuff, and it actually cleaned the book up and made it a lot easier to read. Yeah. Yeah, there's and a lot of it. I come through in a number of different scenarios. I have a character who's a brilliant computer technician, but he's also a blues guitarist, and he has a terrible stammer. And I based him on a fellow I knew in high school who could sing like an angel but could not carry on a conversation because of his stammer. And so I gave him a significant role in the book, not a lead role, but he's kind of a secondary lead, and I gave him a backstory that mirrored some of the things that I experienced as an adolescent, some terribly painful things I went through in school, not because I had a stammer, but because I had a cruel teacher, and so it's a lot of me flowed into the book through things like that. I was going to say I have a confrontation, the ultimate confrontation between good and evil, which comes toward the end of the book, and that came right from my family. I had my female lead in the book. I have her as being this. She's of Irish Catholic descent, and she recalls as this confrontation happens. She recalls she brings up a memory of a backyard picnic, in a family picnic, where her uncle, an elderly priest who had been a missionary in Tanganyika, tells her about a confrontation he had with a witch doctor in which he actually confronted the devil, and so I use that in the book. Because that was a story that my father's first cousin, who was a missionary priest in Tanganyika, he told me that at a backyard picnic. Told me that exact same story, and I thought, but I can, so I've just kind of pulled from all over the place to bring this thing together, and everybody who reads it says it reads like a movie. It moves right along. They have a great sense of a visual on who the characters are and where the characters are. So I think I did a fair job in getting it together, but now we got to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're self-published, yeah?
Yes, and that's always a challenge. And for anybody out there who's a writer and trying to get published, they can appreciate it. It's a flooded field. Everybody is writing a book, and the publishers will not accept anything directly submitted to them. So you have to go through an agent, and the trick is to get an agent to answer the phone and return your mail. And that's a very difficult task. So you're constantly sending stuff out and hearing nothing back.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that, but I've had that experience, and yeah, it's a tough old industry out there. And I think you did the right thing self-publishing it, because you're almost like direct to the consumer yourself, and you've got platforms like this to come onto as well, which is fantastic, with people that care about these subjects. So. Have you ever been to the Giza pyramid in Egypt?
No, but we're going to be. Our first trip there is going to come this October. So I have been dying to see the pyramids.
Right.
And so we're finally going to be able to see them. So I've done it all long distance, the internet research machine, and that's it.
And how much research did you do on the Antarctic?
Oh gosh. It was, as I was going along, all of a sudden saying, well, geez, I need to have something happen in this location, and I'd never been there, and so I'm doing all this incredible research on locations and what these places are like, and trying to describe them, and so such as southeastern Montana, the Badlands of southeastern Montana, the mountains of Colorado. I've been to the mountains of Colorado, so that was a little bit easier, but Antarctica, that was. that's my Atlantis, and so I had to come up with a description of Antarctica.
Yeah.
And that required a lot of research. So.
I bet it did. I bet it did, and we've got a lot to get into in this short amount of time as well. So, okay, when you look at the Giza pyramid as being a power plant, then the people that maybe built this pyramid, they came from Atlantis. That's your sort of theory.
Yes, and I have an Atlantis that was an advanced culture that was really unaffected by the Ice Age because they were on this island in the southern Indian Ocean. And as the Ice Age was melting down in 12,500 years ago, and new cultures were emerging along the coastlines, the Atlantis wanted to exploit the riches and the natural resources of those areas. And so I have the master architect of Atlantis come up with a plan to say, well, then you're going to need an energy system to power all of the exploration and mining needs. And so he comes up with this idea of the Great Pyramid at Giza. And his whole concept, as I said, everything is based on music, is that the pyramid sits on a granite base, and which it actually does, and it vibrates on the Earth's natural resonance. So the Earth vibrates in the key of F sharp, way below our level of hearing. And what his concept was to take that and channel that F sharp vibration into this massive building. And then with a set of baffles, change that key of F sharp to the key of A, and the key of A resonates at 438 cycles per second, which is the exact amount of speed you need to turn hydrogen into pure energy. So it needs an additional chemical additive, but if you do this in this great big building with all this vibrating granite, you get energy. And so that was, Christopher Dunn's premise, and I'd used that as a foundation for the book. And it was, the whole concept of the Earth. The Earth is vibrating. The Earth is music. And music equals math. Math equals vibration. Vibration equals energy.
So different planets vibrate at different keynotes then.
Yes, yeah, and they've discovered that. When we sent out the probes and all the, even with our space telescopes, we can tell that now that each planet has its own vibration signature. Wow. And ours happens to be F sharp. Yeah.
Well, so F sharp to key A, right? But then you said there's a chemical reaction that would have happened when at that hertz, at key A hertz. But all that technology that produced that chemical reaction, that's all missing within inside the pyramids. None of that's left, just the rock.
Right. And what I did is I had, as Atlantis, as I said, I used the concept that Atlantis was an island nation in the Indian Ocean, and there's a million theories about where Atlantis originally was. Most of it centers around different locations in the Mediterranean. A couple of them focus on just outside the gates of Gibraltar, both on the northern side and the southern side. And but Plato, in his dialogues in 250 BC, said that 9,000 years before that, Athens had a great war with the island nation of Atlantis, and Atlantis was bigger than the country of Libya, but it ended up ultimately sinking beneath the waves. So I used the idea that Atlantis really didn't sink, but in fact it drifted and became Antarctica. And so it's a fuzzy theory, but it's plausible enough for the book.
But for that to have happened, then we would have needed a pole shift, surely. Something massive must have happened for Atlantis to become what is now Antarctica and the ice layers to be there as well.
Yes, yeah, and I didn't get into all the specifics of that, but there have been theory is a concept called I think it's the Younger Dryas. It was like a second ice age that happened as in 12,500 years ago. The first ice age was ending. Our land masses were getting to look just as they do, pretty much as they do today. And then there was a second cataclysmic event. Many think it was an asteroid that struck in northern Canada, and the angle with which it struck it created a kind of a second ice age that lasted about 1,200 years, and so that sort of thing might have been a trigger, that forced a shifting of land masses. I don't know, and it's kind of speculative, and you kind of have to say, well, I'm going to take a leap of faith and buy into this idea as I read the book, and if you do, you'll enjoy the book.
Right. Okay. So we won't give everything away here. Absolutely. Right. Okay. Just getting back to the pyramids as well. When we look at the sort of mathematical facts on the Giza pyramid, what sort of discoveries are made then, in a sense?
Well, that's what's really so amazing is the mathematics and the precision with which the pyramid is laid out. And as a matter of fact, the precision, well, first of all, it was the largest building in the world until the late 1800s. So that tells you something. And then the precision with which it was laid out, it's exactly, the four corners are marked to the exactual precession of the equinoxes. The perimeter of the base times 43,200 equals the circumference of the Earth at the equator. The vertical diameter of the perimeter of the pyramid, when from top to bottom, times 43,200 equals the polar diameter of the Earth. It's a polar radius of the Earth, and so many other measurements along the sides and interior convert. And when you divide them by 100 or multiply by 1,000 or whatever, they convert into the number 365.24. That's the exact number of days in a year, and that's some absolutely amazing precision, given the fact that they were supposedly built by people that didn't even have the wheel, nor did they have tools that could cut granite with any precision at all. So the conventional Egyptologists will tell you, well, they were built somewhere between 2,900 and 2,500 BC, and the Egyptians at that time did not have those tools.
No.
So I'd go with the idea that it was an advanced civilization that somewhere along the line did it, and maybe it was to be a communications device. Maybe it was to be an energy device. I don't know, but I chose it to be an energy device for my book, and it kind of works, because if you have the explanation that I was reading in Dunn's book was that you introduce two chemicals into the Queen's chamber and they flow down to the Great Hall, and then they are stimulated by the vibrations through baffles up into the King's chamber, where they're then converted into the key of A and stimulated to become a beam of energy that comes right out the southern facing shaft. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
But again, it requires some sort of technology on top of that, and all that's left is just the rock. Basically, we have no evidence of that, but it's an interesting theory, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and my premise is that the Atlanteans, realizing that their island nation was drifting south, took the technology with them because they didn't want to leave it in the hands of emerging cultures. It was too sophisticated to be left in the hands, not just the pyramid technology, but and all of their technologies. Their flying vehicles and things like that. The people that were emerging, back at 12,000 to 8,000 years ago, they were basically, rudimentary farmers. And all over the world. And so the Atlanteans hid their technology and brought it with them down into the caverns deep in their mountains, and that remained hidden in my book in Antarctica until my discoverers, find out that there's some acoustic anomalies in some of these mountains that they're not solid, and they realize that we can get inside there, and inside there's some amazing technology.
Yes. Yeah. And when you think about it as well, the alignment to the stars as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I'm stepping all over here, but there's a Belgian astronomer named Boval who, in 1992, finally realized, he said, this is a star map. These three pyramids, the Great Pyramid concept at Giza, they're laid out just like the stars in Orion's belt. And he went further to develop a computer program that would show the configuration of Orion's belt as it slightly changed going backward in time. And until finally, when it was low on the horizon 12,500 years ago, that's exactly the alignment of the three pyramids at the Giza complex. So it's not aligned as anything was, 2500 BC. It's aligned exactly as it would have been 12,500 years ago. And so it's an actual star map. And so many of the other pyramid complexes in Central America, they are also solar maps and star maps. They're laid out like the constellations. Who did that?
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about it as well, when you say that they took their tech with them when they left Egypt, I wonder why they left as well. Yeah, really. Was there something impending that they knew was about to happen? And also, how could one civilization on one landmass be more advanced than the rest of the Earth at the time? That doesn't tend to sort of make any sense, neither, does it?
No, it doesn't. But we need an explanation for these ancient phenomena. And you take a look at Stonehenge. 14-ton vertical stones right there on the Salisbury Plain. The vertical stones are 14 tons. The cross pieces are 7 tons. They were quarried in Wales and moved to Salisbury Plain and placed in this precision circle. And that was done by rudimentary farmers with who didn't have the wheel. We're supposed to buy that. It really is. You got to take a speculative leap of faith to accept that explanation. I think there's a more, and the same thing with Newgrange in Ireland and any of the other ones, the dolmen stones. Who lifted these things, and how did they do it? So I think that there was something that preceded our culture that was an advanced technology culture, and they took the clues with them as to who they were. And I don't believe necessarily that it was UFO people. I just think that we might have had a series of civilizations that died out before our present civilization was started emerging.
Yes, because I guess you've been on talk shows where they push that angle of their own agenda, of the ET agenda, but that may not be the case either. Right. Yeah. It's kind of easy to say, oh, these were people from other planets and stuff like that. It's like, well, if they were from other planets, why didn't they leave us more clues? Why haven't they come back? I can't completely buy into that theory myself, but it's it may in fact be true. But I think it's more likely that we had another civilization, and if we live long enough, we're going to become that kind of an advanced civilization. Right. But that they were here a while before us, and we've just got to figure out what was the secret. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was going to say, talking about this technology, some people have discovered the secrets. I don't know if you've ever heard of a place in America called the Coral Castle. It's down in Miami, Florida. Yes, I have. Yes. Yeah. An amazing thing, and it was this Hungarian refugee came here. He had his heart broken by a girl that he loved, and he settled in Miami, and he lived like a hermit.
And he built this coral castle all by himself using no tools. Nobody can figure out how he did it, but he's got these massive blocks that weigh tons that are balanced precision. You can push them with your finger and they'll rotate. It's like a door opening, and they'll rock back and forth, things like that. It's like, how did he get these things to stand upright? How did he get them to the balance so precisely? The only technology that anybody knew that he had was he had a radio, and that was about it. But somehow he knew the secret of moving massive stone. And this, I think, was true whether you go to Machu Picchu, whether you go to Giza, whether you go to the Coral Castle, or you go to Aztec ruins. There's something that went on here and that involved the lifting and moving of staggering weight of stone. And there's got to be a better explanation than that we had ropes and a lot of slaves.
Absolutely. And when you think about this, right, that that technology that they had, right, just say they had that technology there at the Giza pyramid, right, we can't even, let alone recreate, a thing like the pyramids today, really, very easily, right? We cannot recreate that technology of tapping into the frequency of the Earth, can we? I mean, I know that maybe people like Tesla, Nikola Tesla, was maybe onto something on there, right? But we don't have that ability.
I think so, yeah.
We don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Tesla because he was definitely onto something. And he took his secrets with him, and we were left with Edison, and everybody is saying that Edison's form of electricity was not as good as what Tesla was working with, but that was how our technology turned on that moment. But Tesla had the secret. He knew as much as I think the builders of the Great Pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently this was sort of, downloaded to him, wasn't it? Sometimes you might want to use that word. But what I'm saying is, he may have had it, but, our science has not come up with tapping into the Earth's vibration. I mean, I don't know if they would even understand that such things are possible. Yeah.
And I don't know why we haven't started experimenting more with that. Because I think there's the Earth is I think it's a living organism, and it has its own its own beat, its own life, and I think we need to get in harmony with it.
Yeah.
To borrow the song analogy again, but once we're in balance with it and with its rhythm, and that's why I'm saying that my Atlantis people had that advancement. They
Sure.
understood that they had to be musically in tune with the Earth, and the Earth then would unfold its riches.
So when we think of when the Atlanteans pulled out of the pyramid, right, that's when over time the Egyptian culture took over, and the confusion maybe that the Egyptian culture were the sort of primary culture that built the pyramids may not be so true.
Well, I if you take what I did in the books, I'd say, well, the island nation of Atlantis was drifting south into the Antarctic region, and so the leaders of Atlantis gave their own people the option, saying you can, sink or swim. We'll get you to other lands, and so maybe that was where but without the technology. So all the people were able to then go and settle in these lands like Egypt and southern Asia and the Fertile Crescent and all that, and they became the Phoenicians. They became the Egyptians. They became the Sumerians, so that's and a core of the people of Atlantis stayed with the island nation deep inside the caverns and lived there until they finally went extinct. we're with all the secrets and all the technology that were buried with them. So that's kind of my approach on it. So.
And also there was gold. There was gold on top of the pyramid at one time. What was the purpose of that, do you think?
Apparently, that was the gold is a wonderful resonator, and so it would. We're surrounded by hydrogen atoms, and with the gold's reflecting off, it would create a more intensive aura, I guess, from which you could really beam the hydrogen down into through the shafts into the pyramid, into the king's chamber, where it could be then stimulated with this chemical reaction.
Right.
And so the gold played a role in that. And we use gold. A lot of people don't realize, but our sophisticated aircraft, military aircraft, with a high, the ones that do the super electronic surveillance, that sort of stuff. The cockpits are all the rear portion of the cockpits are all the canopies are all sprayed in gold. Because that keeps the pilots from getting irradiated from all the radar stuff that's behind them.
Oh gosh!
And there, so it's gold has some amazing properties, and that they conserve technology very well.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. And okay, moving this to the sort of destruction of Atlantis, and of course you would say it was over time when eventually Atlantis, came into the position that the Antarctic is in now, and obviously, different. The Antarctic is it's not an accessible place. I'm not even sure how people can go over there and visit if they want. I think you need permission to visit, don't you? Or you need I don't even know how that works.
Yeah, I know that they have. You can take cruises to Antarctica, but I think it's a very limited amount of traffic that is allowed. It's a major research center for the United Nations, and we have. In one area, is the major center is the American Center, which I forget exactly the location, but I talk about it. But this was all decided by the UN back in the late 1950s that this would be a protected region. It's almost like the ultimate national park. That it can be used for scientific research, and that's it.
So it's protected. It's protected by the United Nations, then.
Yes. Yeah. There was a famous treaty in 1958 or 59. I did a lot of research on that, and that was where areas were apportioned. So Britain has one area that where they do research. Russia has another area. I think France and Germany each have areas, and the United States has the biggest one.
What sort of research is taking place out there, do you think?
There's climate research. There's research into the layers of ice. They've bored down and gotten a lot of core samples down there, and they found that there's more fresh water in Antarctica than there is in the rest of the world combined, which I found that to be astounding. So they've and there's always there's year-round research that's been done, and of course this is where they found they discovered the meteorite that had actually originated in Mars. That was discovered in Antarctica. So apparently, because of the nature of its location on the planet, it receives a number of rocks, from the from outer space. And that's all part of the research. So,
yeah, I mean, it's basically almost uninhabitable with the weather conditions there. And it's how much of a landmass is it? How huge is it?
Oh, gee, I could. I used to have that statistic in front of me. It's. I'm trying to remember. It's 800 miles across diameter, something like that.
Wow.
And I think that was it. Yeah, and the American sector is that has in the summer, in the Antarctic summer, it has about 2,000 or 2,200 scientists and researchers down there at that time, and then in the winter time it goes down. They only keep a core of about maybe 200 people there over the Antarctic winter. So it's like you get maybe a 4-month window of it being reasonable enough that you could actually go outside and do some research.
I mean, if Atlantis is this continent, I mean, how buried would potential structures be then?
Well, I would think that they would be, whatever structures might have been are probably just totally crushed at this point, because when you have glacier ice, it moves slow, but it absolutely grinds everything in its path. And so I would imagine that if Atlantis had been, if that is it, or was Atlantis, you might be able to find the remnants of foundations. But I think everything, it's not just that, things are covered with snow. They're crushed under trillions of tons of ice. And, but as it's melting so fast right now, it's scary. And that's a thing that's a real problem for our planet. Both the Arctic and Antarctic are melting at alarming rates. And more of the land is emerging from Atlantis, and so we may be making some very interesting discoveries down there. I'm anxious to see what actually does get uncovered. It'd be amazing to all of a sudden just find out that this was a habitable continent at one time, and.
Well, let me ask you this: what do you think of the whistleblowers that come forward with no proof, but say that there are governments have found that there are structures down there, dark pyramids or black pyramids, whatever they're called. Sorry, not dark, black pyramids, this is being kept from us. What does your logical mind say to that?
I want to see some proof. It's I know that they've made those type of accusations, and government conspiracies are. This has got to be a pretty clever government when you think of how many people have to be involved in the cover-up. Whether it's UFOs in Area 51 or Roswell. Or another one I was heard about just recently was about supposedly a pyramid that's buried in Alaska. It's larger than the Great Pyramid at Giza and made out of a material that is not of the earth, and it's being hidden from. The government is preventing the information from getting out because, well, okay, nice story, but where's your proof? Do you have a photograph? Do you have anything that suggests that that's a true story? So I'm open-minded enough to say it could be true, but just show me a little bit of proof first.
Well, and even if we were able to travel across some of the Antarctic, right, we're not going to see anything. I don't think you'd see anything. I mean, to think there may be, holes or crevices, huge, crevices where you can sort of enter into and stuff. I don't know. No one's, has sort of come forward to say with evidence that really does exist.
Yeah, and it's you need to have was it ground radar they call it, and I'm sure that they've had these type of technologies applied down there, but I don't think they've found anything that's that earth shattering. And if they did, why would they keep it secret? So let's also they say, gee, we discovered this major pyramid down there. I can't conceive as to why that would become a state secret. I just find the conspiracy theory is a little bit thin, and I would love to see some, show me some proof, show me some electronic data that supports your.
Also, Brian, in your book, you talk about a connection with the Native Americans, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot there. I used a lot of people think, gee, your hero in the book is a Native American PhD anthropologist. How did you come up with that? And I needed a genetic connection to Atlantis, and because in the first two chapters, which are kind of the introduction, the second part of that first introduction is all about exploration teams that went out from Atlantis, and one of them is up in the north central America in what is now the Dakotas, and the leader gets separated from his crew, and he ends up being captured by Indians, and his body is discovered in present day. So that when the modern part of the book starts, it's all about the discovery of this guy's remains. Well, it turns out that he's genetically connected to the very guy who's sent, the anthropologist who was sent to research his discovery, and so that's why I needed to have that connection. So I've got a Native American PhD anthropologist, and he works for a kind of a secretive but benign research center that does all these researches all over the world. And this body that he discovers is one of several. I don't know if you've read about the various bodies or remains that have been found around the world that are anywhere from 8,000 to 11,000 years old, and they don't necessarily represent the same DNA structure as the native people of those areas. And these people have been found in China and Africa, North America, Japan, and one of them was discovered in Kennewick, Washington, and it was a largely mummified remains that turned out were not connected to any Indian tribe in the area, but they had what were called Caucasoid features, which are European and Middle Eastern type of features, as opposed to Native American features, and so I used that idea of saying, well, these people were explorers from Atlantis. And they just, they had accidents and died. They got trampled by buffalo, or they got captured by natives or whatever. So that was kind of drove my idea behind having an American Indian be the number one hero here. So.
I mean, who's to say Atlantis, the population weren't from some other star system somewhere and came to our planet and, were part of cultivating the human genome, in a sense, from the ape to where it is now. We were their experiment in a sense, and they were the keepers of the garden.
That could be, yeah.
In an idea. But they destroyed themselves, or Mother Nature. Well, not Mother Nature, but some sort of meteorite attack, or whatever it was. That some sudden catastrophic thing occurred to destroy them.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's like we've all been exposed to the theory that an asteroid hit Earth 65 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs. Maybe lesser type of catastrophes came along and destroyed subsequent emerging civilizations.
Yes. Yes, and maybe that's the message to us in your book as well, is that we're not we can suffer from the same fate, and we've got to advance ourselves both scientifically and spiritually to look to exploring beyond the stars as well, and for our own future, because I don't know if Mother Earth is gonna want us on this planet for ever and ever, but unless we start cooperating a bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, and unless we find another planet to go ahead and populate, we either have to figure out how we're going to perpetuate our own civilization here, or we're going to have to learn how to live in caves and start all over again.
Exactly. And one thing I always think about when I think of the pyramids, in the Giza pyramid, is someone like Edgar Case's sort of predictions, where he said that under the paw of the Sphinx or somewhere, there's some hidden chambers that hold some of the scrolls and the information that relate back to Atlantis.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating thing. And apparently, there have been some ground radar tests that indicate there is some kind of a chamber down beneath the paws of the Sphinx. So that'd be really intriguing to also find out that's the ultimate library that holds all the secrets. That would be cool, you know.
That would, but again, would we be ready for it to know that there? I mean, we're very indoctrinated with the movies to know that there are, within the movies, there, science fiction, life out there is a normal thing right now when we think about it. But are we really ready as a species to accept that truth? I wonder sometimes.
That's a good point. Yeah, does it challenge too many of our assumptions? Would it, what would it do to the religious side of things? Would that create all kinds of upheaval? I don't know. And one of the things I do with my Atlantis people is they are deliberately hiding the technology until such time as a future civilization is sophisticated enough to use it. So by burying it in the mountains of Antarctica, they know that only a very sophisticated, technologically sophisticated nation would be able to discover it, and therefore it would be safe, for the discoveries to be brought forward. It's an interesting theory, whether that is true. And would we say the same thing? Would we say, gee, we were going to take every bit of knowledge about nuclear power and bury it in such a way that it couldn't be discovered unless by a future advanced civilization? That's kind of an intriguing question.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Yeah, and just for the audience, obviously your website's been coming up on the screen all throughout this interview, but just for the podcast, your website is?
The website is songofatlantis.com, and it gives you a little summary about me and book synopsis, and there's also a whole thing about frequently asked questions about where did I get the ideas and where where did all my characters come from. So I've kind of enumerated a lot of that. It's an interesting site, and there's a link there that you can connect, shoot you right over to Amazon, and the book is available in paperback on Amazon and also in Kindle.
Okay.
So you can get either version, and Amazon UK as well. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be putting the links in the description below this video to the website, to the books directly on Amazon, and of course you can get it from all other good bookstores as well. In 59 minutes we've covered quite a bit there, and I honestly do appreciate you giving me your time right now just to discuss one of your favorite subjects as well. So thank you very much, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I really, I'm honored that you had me on. And I'm sorry we couldn't get the video working, but people have told me I have a better face for radio anyway. So
they all say that, Brian. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin.